Hello there, I'm Tabletop Toby. Today we're going to be doing a how to play of Above and Below Haunted. This is the new standalone sequel to Above and Below, designed by Ryan Laukat and published by Red Raven Games. If you played the original, this is definitely going to feel familiar. However, there are some new haunted twists and turns. Now when you explore, there may be some ghost friends that come back to your village and haunt it. These can impact your reputation. There's a new action. You can now banish those ghosts. And when you do so, they can actually give you some resources when you send one of those to your opponent's village. So there's definitely some new mechanics. And there's some rule changes from the original as well. Now when you explore, even when you fail, you always get a cave, which is a very much appreciated change. You always get a benefit from exploring. And as always, throw in the Klingon subtitles. That way, if there's a rules mishap, I can speak to you from the future and let you know what that is. And with that, let's dive in because I ain't afraid of no ghost. In Above and Below Haunted, your family has left the crowded marshes and gone to a land of shimmering lakes and sinkholes and watery caves for a new start. You're going to be exploring these caves, you're going to be discovering goods, you're going to be building houses and outposts, you're going to be building out your village for, of course, the most points. So just to set the tone for the how to play explanation, how do you score these points? You're going to get a point for each of your buildings. You're going to get either positive points or negative points based on your position on the reputation track, which can go down based on ghosts in your village at the end of the round, or things that happen during exploration. You're going to get points for having the highest, second highest, and third highest reputation on this track, 5, 3, and 2 points. However, if there's only 2 players, only the top player will get 3 points for having the most reputation. You're going to get points for being the first person to discover these goods. You're going to get points based on goods assigned to your advancement board. And the amount of points is shown here on the left. And it's just based on the number of goods in that slot. Here, this is 1 good here, 1. Here, there are 2 points there. So that's 2 at 3 points each. That's 6. Pearls, which you get for exploring in dangerous caves, as shown here. All pearls you have are assigned to the highest good slot you have on your advancement track. And they count as extra goods for scoring based on the value of that slot. So here, there's 1 pearl, so that would be 4 extra points. Over here, there's 3 here, so that would be 12, because those are worth 4 each. And finally, you get scoring based on bonuses on any buildings. It could be a flat number, here 9, or it can be a conditional number, here 3 for any 2 sets of goods, or here 1 for each villager that you have. It's whatever that is on that card, and there's a helpful guide in the instruction manual about most of the cards. So with that understanding about how you actually get points to win the game, let's talk setup. Each player gets a board, 8 coins. We're using the Fancified Deluxe ones that came in crowdfunding, but the cardboard ones work just fine. 1 Mystic Brew, a starting house card, which has a picture of 3 beds on the back, and on the front has a house above ground with 3 beds on it. And 3 starting villagers, specifically 1 of each kind. Now you can tell the starting villagers because they all have a picture of a house and a fish in the water. Each player gets 1 with a hammer, 1 with a quill, and 1 with neither of those and 2 dice instead. Each one is individually designed, so if you want to be hardcore and care about art, you could have a draft just based on the looks. Place these in the ready area of each player's board, which is the far left area of the board on the left of this line. Any excess starting villagers can go back in the box because they're not going to be used. However, one note here, if you are playing with 4 players, there's a special starting rule that only the starting villagers with the hammer go in the ready area and the other villagers go in the exhausted area. But that's only when you're playing with 4 players. Otherwise, they're all in the ready area. But if you are playing with 4 players, only the hammer villagers go in the ready area and the others go in the exhausted area. But we're only setting up for 2 players, so they're all going to go in the ready area. You then place out all 8 of the star houses into a market. And these are identifiable by the star above the house on the back of the card. I tend to place them from least expensive to most expensive. You'll then take the 9 key cards that are similarly identifiable by the key above the house icon on the back of the card. You're going to shuffle these up and you're going to take 5 random ones. The remainder can go back in the box. And these 5 will be placed out as a general market as well. You then place the reputation board, which has the market for the villagers and this reputation track in the center of the play area. You're going to take the remainder of the villagers, the non-starting villagers. You're going to remove the 2 special villagers with the cave backs that we talked about and put those to the side. The remainder you're going to shuffle, put to the side of the board, and then fill in this market from the left to the right. We're then going to place the moon round token in the round 1 spot. We're then going to create supplies for our coins, our goods. Could separate these out by type. However, since it's an exploration game, I oddly find it particularly fun in this game to search for them in this bowl. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just lazy. Or maybe it's genius or artistic. You decide. Mystic brews, ghosts, pearls, and boats. Separate the cave cards into basic caves and dangerous caves. The dangerous caves have red serpents on them. Shuffle these up and place these face up next to the reputation board. Give each player the set of wooden cubes matching the color on their player board, here red, here green, and each player places one of their wooden cubes on the torch spot, the middle spot of this reputation track. If you do have the deluxe components for the game, you will instead place the torch tokens there. However you would like to decide, choose the first player and give that player the first player card. And then depending on player count, the second player will get 1 extra coin, the third player will get 1 extra coin, and if there is a fourth player, the fourth player will get 2 extra coins. You will then take the house cards and the outpost cards. Each of these have the building symbol on them. The house cards are the ones above ground. The outpost cards are the ones in caves. You'll shuffle these and then create a market of 4 for each. You'll keep the adventure deck, which is this deck with the beautiful tree with the haunting ghost in the background. That's numbered from 1 to 43. You do not shuffle these, you keep these in order. You can keep these nearby, along with the dice and the storybook. And that's the setup. So let's talk about turn actions and rounds. So this game lasts 7 rounds. At the end of the 7th round, the game just ends and we do in-game scoring, and whoever has the highest score wins. Each round, each player in turn can take 1 main action by assigning villagers to take that action, and each player in that round keeps taking actions until they pass, and once they've passed, they're out for that round. When all players have passed, that round ends. We do the end of round cleanup / maintenance, and then the next round begins. We'll get to the end of round items, but let's first talk about turn actions. They're helpfully identified here at the top of the board. There's 5 main turn actions. We're exploring our new home, and that is the first action here. You always have to use at least 2 of your villagers in order to explore. You'll choose either a basic cave or a dangerous cave, and it shows you how many lanterns, 2 to 6 for basic or 5 to 11 for dangerous. And you take the top card and you choose which villagers you're assigning to that action, and then you roll to find out which adventure you get to take. 1, so in this case, 49, and we get the storybook. We go to passage 49, and it's not actually you that goes to the storybook, it should be the player to your left. They'll read this passage, and we're not going to spoil anything here. You're going to encounter something, there's going to be a creature or a ghost. Something happens and you have to decide what to do. You're always faced with at least 2 choices. Here, agree to help or trade. And there's a number next to it, and the person that reads the passage to you will tell you that number. Here it's explore 3 or explore 5. We choose which of those we would like to do. Here, the max amount we could do is 3. However, we could potentially get to 5, but it depends on how we roll. But 5 could be pushing it, so we're going to be safe and just do 3. And then you roll a die for each villager, and you have to say which one you're rolling for before you roll. So we'll roll for this one, 1, So we did not accomplish that. And this one, 1. So we only have 1 lantern at this time, which is not going to get to the 3 we needed for the choice that we chose, which would mean that we would fail as it is now. If you fail an encounter, you still get the cave, which is a change from the original above and below. In Haunted, you always get a reward. In this case, the cave, that would be all we would get, and the encounter would end. However, if we had rolled a 4 and a 3, we would have 3 lanterns and we would succeed. If that were the case, we would then read the passage for success and we would take whatever reward it is. In this case, 1 reputation, 1 rice, and the adventure card, 7. So we go up, we would take a good, and we would get adventure card 7, which we'll put to the side for now, and we would also get the cave. We'll come back to the adventure card. In the meantime, let's talk about exertion. Let's first go to the scenario where we had rolled the 2 1s. In this case, as it is now, we only have the 1 lantern. However, you can at that point, after your roll, before you find out what the reward is, you can exert by putting it in the injured right-hand column of your player board. Get 1 extra lantern for each villager you do this for. In this case, we could do it for both. So even with that bad roll, we can succeed by exerting villagers. Now we should also talk about bonuses. Anytime you exceed the required number, in this case we chose the Explore 3 option, so if we exceed it by 2 and get 5 lanterns, then there's bonuses that you can get. Now you can't know these bonuses before you decide to try to get them, but in this case, if we had rolled the 3 and 4, we could potentially have gotten it, but it would also have required us to exert both villagers. So you'd have to decide whether you thought it was worth it before you even know what the rewards are. But in this case, if we had rolled a 4 and 3, we'd have the 3 required for the Explore 3 option we chose. But then if we did exert both of them, that would give us 4 and then 5, and then we'd be able to get the bonus, which in this case, plus 1 reputation and 1 coin, and we would get those rewards as well. So we'd get to go up and we would get an additional coin also. And before we get to this adventure card, just to know another reward, so coins, mystic brews, both other goods of course. If you do succeed in a dangerous cave, which does require way more lanterns, 5 to 11, so you'd need more villagers or better villagers that can potentially give you more lanterns, you will get a pearl for succeeding on top of what other rewards you get from the passage. And then on these adventure cards. So these can range from items that give you a personal effect. These can also go to the extreme of literally rules that change the entire game for everyone. They can make villagers less expensive for everyone. They can make it so everyone can get rid of ghosts more easily from their village. And so we'll just look at this one really quickly. I don't know what this one is. So this one is a quest, and it says the next time that we explore, we're going to read a particular passage instead of the one on the cave card. So this would just sit here and be a quest for us and doesn't necessarily impact anyone else. But just be aware that there are those mega, I would say, adventure cards that can impact the course of the entire game. And that's kind of the fun of this game. You never know where your adventures may take you. They could be big effect things or small effect things. But let's talk about ghosts for a minute, because this is above and below Haunted. And so one of the things that can happen when you explore is that along with those rewards, it will tell you that ghosts have followed you back as well. This could be one ghost, it could be multiple ghosts. And when a ghost follows you, you have to assign it to buildings in your village. You get to decide which ones you assign it to. It can be any open one. If you have no open buildings, you don't have to assign any ghosts. And these will be negative reputation at the end of the round. And there's ways to get rid of them, but that's a separate action, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And that's basically all of exploring, which is the most complex action. So all of the actions from here are going to be way more straightforward. The next action is build. For it, you use a villager with the hammer symbol. You move it to the exhausted section of your board, and then you basically pay the cost of the building. It could be one of the key cards, which are good starter cards that give you bonuses, either a boat or This one allows you to roll all of your dice and explore, then assign it to the particular villager, which is pretty powerful. Or every time you recruit a villager, you get Mystic Brew. That's what the key cards are. They're kind of good starting cards that give you bonuses ongoing. The star cards up here are in-game scoring cards. So those are probably later purchases because they're so expensive. You're not going to have that money for a while. And then these are the kind of normal market cards. There's the houses that are the above ground that you can build anytime, of course, if you have the money. And then the outpost. And to build an outpost, you have to have an open cave. So to build, you expend a villager to the exhausted area and you pay that money, say 5 in this case. You put it in your village. If there's any goods on it, you fill it up. Here, there's 2 dots there showing that we put 2 claims there, and then we would get a boat. If there's not 2 dots, buy a good, like this one, you just put 1 good. Here, this one is a one-time bonus of 2 reputation. We would move up. Oh, what are you doing there, money? So whatever that is. Whenever you purchase a building, it immediately refills for the next player. And that's basically all there is to building. You're just moving one of the hammer villagers over to the exhausted area. So you have to have one of the hammer villagers to build. And you're spending the money. If you're building an outpost, you have to have a cave. And you take any bonuses that are present on the card and you fill any goods that are present on the card as well. We'll come back to banishing ghosts because I think the next logical one is recruiting villagers. For this one, you have to have the quill, the feather. You put that villager in the exhausted area and you spend the amount of money under the villager that you want to recruit. If you recruit left of this sign, you see there's a ghost there, then you've taken a shortcut. You're not spending as much money, so you took the cheap ferry, and then that means a ghost is going to follow you with this villager. And you're going to have to put this ghost into your building. In this case, we only have 1 building left. That's going to have to go there. And any recruited villagers always go into your exhausted area. They're tired from their journey, so they're going to be ready for work tomorrow. Unlike buildings, you do not fill the empty spots of the villager market. These are only filled at the end of the round, so that's different than the building market. Now, if you pay more and recruit from this 4 and 5 coin slot, instead of a ghost, you actually get a Mystic Brew. And we'll talk about what these do later. So that's recruiting villagers. You're expending a quill villager, and you're just paying the cost. To the left of the sign, you get a ghost. To the right of the sign, you get a Mystic Brew. And then laboring. So laboring can be any villager. If it's a non-hammer villager, so a villager with no symbol or the quill symbol, you will exhaust that villager. You will get 1 coin, and they will get to take 1 good. They're laboring in your fields, and you get to take that into your supply. When they're here, they're kind of in the fields and they haven't been harvested yet. So you're kind of harvesting it into your supply. Now let's reverse time and say we still have this hammer villager left. They would get the coin, but a hammer villager, and it shows this here, can actually harvest 2 goods. And so they would be able to harvest both of these clams at once, but they still only get paid $1. So I don't know if that's fair, but they just work harder. Now, of note, we don't have more buildings out with goods. Those 2 goods can be from 2 different buildings. So if we had another building, they could take one of the 2 clams and then take a good from another building. They don't have to both be from the same building. And that's laboring. So now let's talk about banishing ghosts. So now we have 2 ghosts. So to banish ghosts, you expend a quill/feather villager. You get to remove all of your ghosts from your village, all of them, no matter how many. However, you take one of them and you get to place them in a village of your opponent. There has to be an open building there. So if they don't have an open building, then you're not able to place a ghost there and you get no further benefit. You just get to banish your ghosts and avoid the negative reputation at the end of the round. However, if they have a building open, depending on the type of building, and the reputation board reminds us of this, if it's a house without a bed, you get 2 reputation and 2 coins. If it's a house with a bed, you get a Mystic Brew and 3 coins. If it's an outpost, so one of the underground buildings, it has to be an actual building, not just the cave, then you get a boat, which are pretty powerful, and a Mystic Brew. So you'll place this into the building in the opponent's village and take whatever the appropriate bonus is. And that's banishing ghosts. So those are the 5 main actions. Now there are several free actions you can take at any point on your turn. One is whenever you are the first person to claim a good, whether it's through harvesting it from your village or through exploring and pulling it into your inventory, but it has to be in your actual inventory, not on one of your buildings. You take a cube, then you put your cube on that good on the ingredient track. In this case, when we harvested the clams, we would do that as well if we were the first one to have a clam in our inventory. Another anytime action is once on your turn, you can spend 1 coin to refresh one of these 2 rows. So it's only one of the 2 rows and it's once per round. You would pay a coin, put these 4 on the bottom of the stack and put 4 new buildings out, either in the outpost or the houses, but only one of those rows. Another free action is using the boats. What you see on them is shows a coin slash and then a 6 die. So you can at any time take it from your ready area and move it to exhausted to just get a coin, and then it's used for that round. However, if you're in the exploration phase and you roll and you don't get the number you want and you want it to be higher, you can also expend it and you can magically transform that die into a 6. So these can make exploration much more predictable. And you can save these, use these for exploration, and if you don't need them, you can always use them for coins. But it's either or, so the sequence of how you do those is important. Another thing you can do is buy or sell goods. You can take one of your goods and you can put them in this left-hand corner of your board on your turn, which makes it available for someone else to make an offer for that good. And that's a free action. You can only change the good on offer on your turn. You can't change it on someone else's turn, but that's something else you can do on your turn is you can remove this and put a different good on offer or remove it from offer. Those are options. Now on your turn, if someone else has a good available on the corner of their board, you can make an offer for that good. As you see here, you always have to pay at least 3 coins for that good. Beyond that, it's up to what the parties agree to. However, the person selling the good has the right to refuse any offer for any reason, including that the person who wants to buy is winning and is doing so well, you just don't want to give them any further advantage. And that's perfectly valid. Something else you can do on your turn is put goods on your advancement track. Now, once you've placed goods on the advancement track, they are stuck there. You can never move them or remove them. And this is a huge part of scoring strategy about when you're getting goods and the rarity of those goods. But these also impact the income that you're getting on rounds, so there's also a strategy around that. But you can place them here. Once a good is there, if you want to place a good of the same type, it has to go on the spot where the good of the same type already exists. So those are all of your actions. So as I mentioned, end of round happens when all players have passed. They either have taken all the actions they can, or they don't want to take any further actions. There could be reasons you want to save a worker for another round. And then we have the sequence for end of round. So the first thing that happens is that the ghosts haunt. So for every ghost on any player's village, their reputation is going to go down by 1. And then now we do the round marker. So this is where, if this were the end of the 7th round, after the ghosts haunt, at the end of the 7th round, then the game just ends. But the ghosts do haunt after the 7th round, but that's the only thing that happens after the 7th round. Otherwise, the game just ends. In any other round, we then refresh the villagers, which we move them all to the left, and then add villagers to the right as necessary. You rest villagers based on the number of beds you have. So you have 3 beds on your starting cards, and then you can acquire additional beds as you see here in the market. So when you rest, you can move villagers 1 space to the left based on the number of beds. So we have 3 here, so we can go 1, 2. This villager is only going to go from injured to exhausted. And that's the 3 beds. And you cannot move a villager twice because that doesn't make sense. They can only rest once in 1 bed. They can't rest twice in 1 night. However, we have a Mystic Brew. Mystic Brews you can use then to move a villager an additional time. And in fact, you can actually use 2 Mystic Brews to get a villager all the way from injured. So say we have the situation like this, we could do the 3 beds and move these. And if we had 2 Mystic Brews, we could actually use both of them to go 1, 2. You can use 2 Mystic Brews to get them all the way from the right, twice on the same one, but you cannot rest a villager twice using 2 different bed icons. Now there are some villagers that cannot use Mystic Brews because they are robotic, and so they cannot drink them. However, they also do not require a bed. But that does mean if they're injured, they would only go up here, but there would be no way to get them fully healed in that one round. But that is resting. Boats also now move from the exhausted area to the ready area, and they just do this. They don't require beds. Funny boats don't require beds. They also don't require Mystic Brews. But all boats, no matter how many of them you have, just move from your exhausted area to your ready area at the end of every round. Then all players collect income based on their position on the advancement track. In this case, this player would collect 3 because they have no goods yet on their advancement track. This player would collect 5 because they have placed goods up to this position on their advancement track. You would then refresh goods on buildings in your village if appropriate. This only occurs if there's a refresh goods symbol, and that is this one. The arrow indicating that there is refreshing of goods at the end of the round. So only 1 good goes here, but when this good has been harvested, if it's empty, it will refresh. Whereas this, 2 goods here are placed at the beginning, but it's never refreshed. And then the first player marker is moved to the left, and we start the next round. As I mentioned, after the 7th round, after the Ghost Haunt, and then you cannot move the round marker any further, then the game ends and we do end of game scoring, which we already talked about at the beginning of the How to Play, so we're going to breeze through in-game scoring, because you already know this, right? Right, yeah, you do. So you're going to get scoring for goods and pearls on your advancement track. In this case, it'd be 1, and then 2, 3, and then pearls count for goods. Pearls go on the highest level of good on your advancement track. So we'd have a whole whopping 4 points in this case, which is absurdly low. We'd get 1 point for each building that we have. Here, a whopping 2. We'd get our reputation, either positive or negative. We'd get points for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd reputation level, but if it's a 2-player game, just 3 points for the top person. In this case, it'd be 3 points for red as a 2-player game. If there's a tie between 2 positions, you add up those 2 values and you split those totals between those 2 players. You would score any bonuses from cards in your village, which could be a flat number or a conditional based on certain types of things in your village. And there's a helpful guide in the rulebook for these cards if you have trouble figuring out the iconography. And then you get points if you have a marker because you claimed these ingredients first, 4, 2, or 1, depending on the ingredient. And then highest score wins. Ties are broken by most coins. If there's still a tie, then it's broken by most villagers and boats combined. And if there's still a tie, they even had a 3rd level tiebreaker, and that is most buildings. And my gosh, if we're still tied after that, then you know what? We're all winners. Well, at least the people that had a tie at that point. Everyone else is still losers. But those people that are still tied after the 3 levels of tiebreakers, those people are still winners. So there you have it. That is my How to Play. If you have any questions, any rules clarifications, ask them in the comments below. If I had any rules mishaps, please let me know, and I will add those to the Klingon subtitles. And thank you for being here. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe. Appreciate that. It means a lot to me. And you know what? Just remember, the only rule is that there are no rules, except, of course, in board games.